I never hold anything back. Uh,
Good.
well, I don't know how many people on have, are familiar with me or ever even heard my story, but how my life began to change by way of credit was back in the late 90s when I found myself, tried the whole college thing, went to college, played basketball, got a degree, had dreams of being a high school teacher. And once I got going and the other elements came into place, such as wife and kids, and I discovered that the money that I was making as a teacher had me living from, as they say, paycheck to paycheck. And essentially I just found myself behind, bank account being overdrawn from time to time, just trying to pay the bills. And what happened with me, and this is true story, like I'm sleeping in this apartment that me and my wife had. And keep in mind, my credit was bad. Her credit wasn't the best. And I'm just being honest, we had actually got this apartment back then. People use CPN numbers, but we were actually using the tax ID numbers at the time to create new credit files. And I had got the apartment really under a tax ID number just to get in, because my credit was just that bad from trying to, just live. And sleeping on the floor, no lights, because I'm from Memphis, so anybody from Memphis knows the light.
Right.
The light company here is man, they're gangsters for real. So, and I woke up because I was so stressed I couldn't sleep, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I woke my wife up. And at the time we had one kid, which is my oldest daughter now. And I told her, I was like, babe, the only way we're going to get out of this situation is we got to fix our name. We got to fix our credit. That's going to be the starting point. And I was like, I need you to trust me with 24 months. I said, we got to let this apartment go. We got to move in with your grandmother, or we can move in with my mom. So we ended up moving in with her grandmother. It didn't take the 24 months. And what I actually started doing, I started putting I put all of my time into researching credit, trying things. I mean, if you read my first book, when I talked about the cut and paste with the bankruptcy courts and public records, I tried all of that, and it was working. It was clicking. I was, able to take the bankruptcy off my credit, and every day I was on the phone with the credit bureaus, whether it was Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, and one of the things that I was doing is I was picking, because in anybody that you encounter on a job, there's always a lazy person. There's always someone that you can, as I say, steal information from. And that's exactly what I was doing. I was stealing information and just connecting the dots. And even before people started doing the police reports, like I was already, before they even put the Fair and Accurate Credit Transaction Act into place, I was already doing the police reports to clean up my credit. And first time I did it, it was like a light bulb went out. So I was using that method, and we being raw, I cleaned my credit up when it got me probably a little bit over 60 grand, and I ran it up because I was still stupid, and cleaned my credit up again. By that time, I had got into the process of purchasing real estate, and me and my wife, we purchased our first home together. House was like 300 grand, maybe 4,200 square feet. That's a big deal here in the South.
Right.
And that's what got things going. And then I got into doing business credit and buying the shelf corporations. Like you guys on the West Coast, you probably familiar with remember N-Corp Services that was based in Las Vegas.
Right.
Yeah, so I was buying a lot of shelf corps from them.
Right.
What I was doing, I was taking people that I was using them as credit investors.
Right.
And I would get them. I would make them the principals on the company, and I was building my relationships with the banks. And so, the course of less than 2 years, I had accumulated over $2 million. Like literally, like this was cash flow. Like this
right.
This was lines of credit. This wasn't even the credit card.
Right.
This wasn't even the houses that I was flipping. Like if I bought a house. If I got the house for $5,000 here in Memphis, or and I maybe put 2,500 into it, and then I'll go get if the house would appraise for 40, I'll make some bread off of it, or I was taking my people, and I don't know if you guys remember, was the desktop appraisals was real big,
right?
Back in the day, so I was making my money out there as well, but. Long story short, with me being in Memphis, and at the time, the FBI had deemed Memphis like #1 in the country for fraud.
Wow.
So, yeah, so with me being here in Memphis, and Memphis being so small in the energy here with people, if you stand out,
right.
It's almost like it's like attention will bring you, it'll bring you fame, it'll bring you money, but it'll also bring you problems.
Right.
And that's what it did for me, and they stepped in and basically they was trying to say that I had did over like $2.4 million in fraudulent loans. But that wasn't the case. And then, a lot of people, when they hear the FBI, you
they
get
panic.
scared.
Right.
Yeah, they panicking. And I ain't gonna lie, like I had that's when I started losing my hair, because this was I had never dealt with them before. Police, dealing with the police is one thing.
Right.
When you get the feds to come in, it's a different beast. Police can be reckless.
Right.
Feds, they calculate, like they come for you, like they making sure they got a 95% chance of doing something. And but the situation with them, I think even for them, because they don't know a lot about this credit game. Like you got attorneys, there's consumer attorneys, and they don't know as much about credit as we do.
Right.
Believe it or not.
I found that out. You're right. I've had people, attorneys approach us and ask us to teach them. You're absolutely right.
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 So they don't know. So once they got into I had to go. They subpoenaed me and my wife before a federal grand jury. So I was dealing with the postal inspector. I was dealing with the FBI, and I was dealing with the head of the economic crime division for the Memphis Police Department, all at the same time.
Right.
I had to go in and I had to do all of these handwriting samples, took pictures of me, did the same thing with my wife. Keep in mind, I was 5 months pregnant at the time with my second daughter. But once they got into the whole interviewing thing, I'm not going to say interrogation, they discovered like some things was not as they appeared to be.
Right.
Great areas, but I wasn't crossing the line of doing anything illegal. It wasn't identity theft. It wasn't turning in any illegal paperwork, because we could, back in the day, we could do stated.
Right.
We could do stated loans, no different than what they were doing with the housing market, and they knew what was going on.
Right.
Everything, so I kind of walked away from that deal, and it kind of passed over. And over time, I still had run-ins with them, whether it was, I had a real big real estate deal that I did in Memphis, and this was in 2009. And the bank that I was dealing with was Bank of America. And I'm going to fast forward to like 2 days ago to something that happened with me with Bank of America.
Right.
But an issue came up with where I got the money from, as far as the funds to put down on the house, and FBI again showing up at my doorstep.
Right.
So I went through that deal again with them, and you know, I kind of explained that situation to
now, Corey, when you were going through that, did you have to get an attorney, or were you pretty much you knew what you were saying?
I didn't get an attorney for that, but I was so pissed at the time. And I was actually driving in the car with my wife when I found out that they had been by my house.
Right.
And I left the card on my door, and I got the phone call from my daughter. And I told her to read the card, and I was so pissed. I'm in the car with my wife, and I said, you know what? I'm going right now. Like, I'm tired of this.
Right.
And I drove to the FBI office here on Humphreys Boulevard, you know, called her like I'm downstairs. Okay, I'm coming up.
Right.
And I went up, and you know, they showed me some money orders and like, are you familiar with this money order? I'm like, yeah, that's my money order. And then they passed me another one.
Right.
And I was like, nah, I don't know what that is. But what happened with the real estate deal? Some, you know, female at Bank of America took my money order and basically cloned it, and whatever she did with the bank, she did with the bank.
Oh,
There was a question about, whether I was involved with it. I'm like, nah, my money's official.
Right.
You know, this is my money come from, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
So kind of walk past that. But when I say fast forward, 2 days ago, I go to log into my Bank of America account.
Right.
Can't get in. Don't recognize it.
Right.
I'm like, what the hell? So I get on the phone with him. I call, and I was like, hey. And I'm doing it as I'm driving to the bank because I got bread in Bank of America, you know. So
you got some serious bank in there, right?
Yeah. So what happens, before I could walk in the bank, I get the chick on the phone, and she's like, I got to transfer you to another department. So I was like, okay. She transferred me to the department. I'm on hold for like 40 minutes. And finally, they come, you know, they get on the phone. They're like, sorry, Mr. Smith, but Bank of America has chosen to end its banking relationship with you at this time.
Wow.
Like, for what?
Right.
And they was like, well, no reason. The only reason is, you know, we have the right to do that. She was like, just like you have the right to come in and close your account, we have the right to stop doing business with you. Now, keep in mind, not to go all the way into my business, I got like 6 figures in Bank of America.
Right.
To close my account and let me know that they will be sending my money in the mail. So
you mean they're going to send you a check in the mail for all that money? Wow.
All my money. Right?
Wow.
But I think where this stemmed from was I had put some information out about Bank of America, and I may have briefly touched on it in one of my last book, but I didn't go all the way into it.
Right.
I didn't go all the way into it, and a lot of eyes have been on the information that I put out, and you never know who knows who or whatever.
Of course,
and,
of course.
And
of course.
I hadn't gotten all the way to the bottom of it, but I think that's where it stems from. But my point is, like, that gives credit to my philosophy when people try to hold these bigger corporations to the standard where they think that they have this certain type of integrity,
right?
Where they won't do wrong, or they won't treat people in a certain way,
right?
But you know, that's my whole Bank of America story. But going back, like, I went through the thing with the feds, and what happened, once I accumulated all this money, it was new to me, getting money that fast,
right?
And just reckless with it. I lost it all. Lost it all.
Right.
Houses got foreclosed on, and you know, my life.
So you had to start you had to start almost all over again.
And I had to start over. Like, we had the house in Memphis.
Right.
I had a condo at the Buckhead Grand. That's in Atlanta. It was like paid probably like $525 for it. I had another crib in Vero Beach. Paid like $700 for it. Had the pool
Right.
sitting on the lake in the gated community. I lost it all, lost all of it,
Right.
and I almost lost my family in the process, and ended up having to move into a red roof inn.
Right.
Wife, kids, and one of the last things I had, and I tell this story, and I remember looking downstairs when I met the red roof inn. I remember, man, I had the S550. Remember they changed the bodies on the S550 before the bodies that they have now. They had the new bodies that I had.
So for those of you that don't know, he's talking about the vehicle. Now, what kind of vehicle is that, Corey?
It was the S550 Mercedes.
Mercedes, okay.
So I had it. Had like $10,000 worth of rims on it. And I just remember looking down at it.
Right.
From upstairs, staring the red roof in, and I was like, man, rock bottom again.
Right.
And I went back, and I was like, man, the same way that I got out of my first situation,
right,
got to do it again, and this time I got to be smarter about it.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, And I appreciate you sharing that story. And like I said, we share similar backgrounds. I myself, that second time when that transaction fell through, that really threw me for a loop. I wasn't even prepared for it. But the thing is, and what you're saying is, number one, you're able to come back. Number two, right, what I got from what you were saying and what I already know, and I agree with you, is that the banks and credit agencies think they can ride above the law. And it's only if you're armed with educating yourself on how to prevent yourself, and we're going to get into some of the techniques and strategies of how, my philosophy is when it comes to credit repair, I'm not really actually doing any sort of credit repair. The only thing I'm really doing when I'm sharing with clients is I'm basically helping them stick up for their rights.
Right.
I don't ever get into how much money was allegedly owed. I don't ever get into asking the credit agencies to verify anything. I never even touch it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and show some proofs here real quick, Corey. And as I do that, I'm going to make the screen go blank here, so all of you are not going to be able to see it. I'll bring up the screen here in just a second here. But I want to show you guys some proof here, because it's one thing people they ask all the time. Hey, can you get rid of bankruptcies? Can you get rid of public records? This is an email from a gentleman that was sent to Curtis, and his name is Richard McIntosh. And he says, hello, Curtis, good morning. How are you? Curtis, Equifax Credit Service just told me a minute ago that today, February 20th, that the bankruptcy has been removed and off of the credit report ahead of time. Question is there a lender that we can try to use that uses Equifax only? So I'm showing you for two reasons. Number one, we get these types of emails all the time. And there's a couple things about this email that kind of stick out. Number one, we really, and we're going to actually walk you through how to do it, we really know how to remove public records. And we do it in a legal way, and it's permanent. You never have to look back. But the other thing, and this is going to go to the type of client that we see all the time, and that is they're always in a hurry. In a hurry. I mean, you can't get this stuff off of the credit fast enough. And so with this guy, and we told him, look, we're going to help you get your bankruptcy off of Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Equifax was the first one to go, and he didn't want to wait a few other days, and he wanted to get right to funding. Now, of course, we have lenders that will do only strictly at Equifax pool. And so and he remembered that, and that's why he had asked that question to Curtis there. And so, but I just wanted to kind of show you that. The other thing the hard thing that is, I'm going to make my screen go blank here for just a second again, and I apologize. I've got several screens up, and I'm only able to focus on one screen at a time. So that's why you see the screens going blank, and I'm going to bring that up. But the other thing that people have a hard time getting rid of is inquiries. I noticed that even the biggest credit repair companies out there like Lexington Law or Credit Sesame, they can't get rid of inquiries. They got, in fact, a 40% success rate. Our success rate is a lot better, and it's a lot faster. But we're gonna go over the techniques of how to do that. But I just wanted to show you that, you know, these inquiries we got off the client, and it happened in about 2 weeks' time. And a lot of people say, well, 2 weeks, that's just too fast. You guys are doing something wrong. How can that be? Well, think about it. And we're going to actually, Corey and I are going to actually talk about this, what actually goes on behind the scenes with the credit agencies. But typically, when people send something to the credit agencies, they'll get something back in about 2 weeks, and it says something to the effect that it's been verified or it's been updated. Well, in that same time frame, you can get a deletion letter, such as this. You know, not a verified letter. So it really takes about 2 weeks if you know what you're doing, and we're going to go through that. I'm going to show one more here, and then we'll kind of go into some other things here. But and so same thing with charge-offs and collections here. Let me just pull that up real quick here, and some inquiries there. Sometimes we do get an update, and then we just go back and we do a round 2 here. Every once in a while, it doesn't happen that often, but every once in a while, we literally will instruct a client on how to sue the credit agencies. And when I say every once in a while, I really mean just that. Out of the thousands that we deal with, as long as I've been with the organization, only 3 times have we have ever, and 2 of the ones we won, the third one we didn't win, and that was only because the client didn't show up, okay? So if you don't show up for your own case here, you're not going to win here. But this client, his name was Darwin Thomas, that you see on the screen here, and I'll take a little highlighter so that way you can actually see the client's, the plaintiff's name there. You can see that on the screen. He basically, TransUnion was the one that we were going after because they just weren't following the rules here. And so I'm going to go ahead and slide it over so that you can see here. Now, he wasn't in it for the money, so even though he won his case, he got a $595.21 judgment. And you could see that judgment for the plaintiff. You could see that the defendant is TransUnion. See, there's the defendant. Okay, and then there's the judgment for the plaintiff, who was our client. So not only did we get the thing off the credit report ultimately because TransUnions they were playing games, but he got $595 for his trouble as well. And we're going to talk about how to do that. So when it comes to, you know, collections, charge-offs, student loans, bankruptcies, car repossessions, there is nothing that, and I mean this with all sincerity, there is nothing that I haven't seen that we can't get off. Now, the only question is how long will it really take? And what we do is, and when people ask me that, that's the number one question people ask is how long will it take? I say, look, it really depends on you. And Corey, you tell me this, because people just expect, that you take their money and they just sit on their hands and not do anything. That could be nothing further from the truth. And we want to educate you guys so that you guys can do it on your own. And that's what this is all about here. So, okay, so Corey, so what I'm going to do here is I got some questions lined up here, and we're going to kind of take first things first here. And by the way, for those of you that don't know Corey P. Smith, his website is coreypsmith.com, and you can see that on the screen, and he's all over the place, okay? Now, what Corey didn't tell you, but he can confirm what I'm about to tell you, is that for all of his dealings with the feds, they have told him he's one of the best. All right, now Corey, am I exaggerating or not?
Well, no, it's literally.
Okay.
Literally,
so,
they have
right.
told me.
And so it's interesting, and I know that Curtis has met with Corey, and they've had a pretty good meeting and so forth. And so I think you won't find anybody else that's well equipped. But Corey, he's out there. I know that Curtis, he doesn't like the limelight, and he's off into other ventures. He likes investing in businesses, flipping commercial real estate and businesses and so forth. This is kind of pretty much a sideshow as far as, a business, and that he owns multiple businesses there. But for those of you that are interested, I definitely totally endorse Corey. You'll find him on Google, YouTube, Amazon, just pretty much everywhere. His books can be found in Barnes & Noble, and I showed on the other screen that he's got a couple books out, and let me go to that because he's just released a new book as well. So the two books that he's got right now that's available in bookstores such as Walmart, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. Now, Corey, which book was it? Yeah. Oh, which one is that? Yeah.
I said, you know, you can get the book on audio. You can get it on iBooks, iTunes. Anywhere you can find a book, you can find my book.
And we checked this out. Now, Corey doesn't know that we did this, but as far as credit repair, his books are the best-selling books on credit repair, hands down. Okay, we checked it out. We checked it out, and so which book was your first book? Was it How to Outsmart the Credit Bureaus, or was it The Conspiracy of Credit?
How to Outsmart the Credit Bureaus was the first book. That's why it's so raw.
Yeah, right. And just give us just a real quick thumbnail, because we have so much to cover, and I want to get into the mechanics of what you do. But just give us in the How to Outsmart the Credit Bureaus. Just give us kind of like a 4 sentences of what that book is about.
Just basically, I didn't, you know, I didn't hold any punches back. I talked about repairing your credit the legal way, with letters and dispute forms and police reports, and I ain't talk about a whole lot about affidavits in this book, and I talked about some of the other tricks that I did, like with cut and paste, and you know, with removing inquiries and public records. Like keep in mind that when I did this book, this was like back in 2003 going into 2004. So the game has changed. You know, you fast forward, but I talked about the mechanics of just how to remove anything off of your credit report, as well as the inner workings of the credit bureaus, the master system, the e-Oscar system, and
we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, so
exactly.
That's what that book is about.
And then The Conspiracy of Credit, and that was kind of more like talked about. Now, was the Conspiracy of Credit after your second run-in with the feds, or after your first run-in? Talk to us about that, just real quick.
That was after my third run-in with the feds.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
So, right, exactly.
Yeah,
okay, right.
That book is. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say because I read both books, and Curtis did too. And what's interesting is that I kind of found that The Conspiracy of Credit really kind of educated, and if those of you that are listening don't know that your name is really paramount, and that your credit is really paramount to really having financial freedom. And then once you've gotten your financial freedom, then you really don't need credit. And it's so funny because the people out there that are always constantly looking for loans are people that are broke. And I'm not pointing fingers, because that was me. That was me, you know. But I'm like, Corey, now that we got, you know, 6-7 figures in the bank and making 6 figures a month, you know, I don't use the credit. I don't even touch it. Don't even touch it.
Wow.
So it's the weirdest thing.
Yeah. You just like me. You know how many people don't understand that after they read this book? That's what it's all about. Removing yourself from the system.
Right. That's exactly it. You know. So I like the picture graphics, because you got the debt, the chain, and you're really kind of handcuffed. You know. I don't know who thought that up, but that was right on. That was
all right me. On. All me, my brother.
Okay, all right. So let's get into it. Okay, this is just a real brief disclaimer here. Basically, the bottom line is this. Okay, Corey and I are going to give you guys our opinion and proven results. They are not a substitute for legal or professional advice. Results depend on you. Okay, if you just listen to this and make yourself feel good and don't do anything, you're not going to get the results. Don't blame us. And I can tell you, the people that have listened to us get the results. They really do. And what determines how fast that happens? It depends on how fast they get up off that couch. And so that's the deal with that. So the first thing that I want to do is, what I always tell people is this. There's a time to start actually working on your credit. Believe it or not, you just don't want to jump in and jump on working on your credit. And I tell people the best time to start working on your credit is when you either have a plan or you know that you can make next month's obligations. What do I mean by that? I mean, it doesn't make any lick of sense. It doesn't do anybody any good for you to clean your credit and then next month you got a 30-day late coming down on something, okay? So that's what I mean, that there's a time to start working on your credit. When you either have a plan, so such as, for example, you know you're going to fix up your credit right away, start investing in real estate or flipping a house or flipping, you know, whatever the case may be, or starting a new product or new service, or buying into an existing business or an existing service, you got to have a plan, okay? Because just like what happened with Corey and actually with me, you know, at one point, well, in my case, I didn't have a backup plan when my real estate fell through. In Corey's case, you know, he wasn't used to all that money and things came coming down. And so what I'm trying to do is tell people in advance, have a backup plan. And have a solid backup plan, okay? That's all I'm saying when I'm saying there's a time to start. Because if you start just fixing your credit, and now all of a sudden now you got the ability to get all this funding, you're gonna wrap yourself around a tree, so to speak. Corey, would you agree with that?
Man, you took the words right out of my mouth. That's the one problem that most people run into before they start anything. They don't have an out.
Right.
And
they don't have.
And they're impatient.
Yeah, they're very impatient. And you know the thing I hear about Corey the most? First of all, they're not really interested in credit. They're interested in funding. And when I ask people, and you know, we have an application, we ask them, well, how much funding are you looking for? Oh, just give me as much as I can get. And whenever we hear that, we know that they don't have a plan. Number one, and we tell them that. We coach them through that because we don't want them to go through the suffering pain that we've gone through, or Corey, that you've gone through. Believe me, it's no fun. Now, even though we can get ourselves out of it, that doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, if you know that, you know, you can go out and drink a fifth of scotch every night or a six-pack of beer and get wasted, you know, just because you can do it, don't do it, okay? So the first thing I want to do is I want to show you guys how to get your credit reports and where to get your credit reports. And I'm not going to do a lot of fluffing with this. I'm just going to tell you guys straight out here. When you get your credit reports, as you're looking at the screen here, you want to get it from one of three places. And that's going to be annualcreditreport.com, creditchecktotal.com, or myfico. Stay away from creditkarma.com, Privacy Guard, and I know there's dozens of out there. And if you've already got a subscription with them and you like it, keep it. But I'm just telling you this, and I'm not going to go into all of it because we don't have time to go through into a whole lot of things here. But for example, Credit Karma, they don't use FICO scores. They use something called Vantage scores. And those scores are not what the banks are paying attention to. Those scores are literally 50 to 100 points higher and will give you a false sense of security. And so when you go to apply for something and you get declined and they tell you because of your credit, and you say, well, wait a minute, I've got 680 plus credit score. Why am I getting declined? It's because you may be looking at Credit Karma and looking at a 680 FICO score, but in reality, you're down to about 610, 600. And so to save you that grief and agony, we really want you to get your credit reports, and this is the very first step in fixing your credit. Is you got to find out what's on your credit. Now I know for myself, and Corey can probably speak to him, but in 2009, I knew my credit was in the toilet. I didn't even want to take a look at my credit because I already knew, and it was almost as if I'm looking in the mirror and I didn't like what I was seeing. Okay, so a lot of people are the same way. They know they've got bad credit, and sometimes you may be pleasantly surprised your credit is not as bad as you think it is. But anyway, Credit Check Total of the three is the one that I'd like for you to get your credit reports and scores from, because annual credit report, you're going to get your credit reports, but you're not going to get your scores. It's going to be free. However, here's the deal. The FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, mandates that once a year that the credit agencies allow consumers to pool their credit. But now, hold on a second. Credit agencies don't like that. They don't like to give away free stuff. So what they do is they'll create a stumbling block, and create challenge questions for you that are almost impossible to pass and literally forces you to buy credit reports. So this is why we're saying either credit check total or my FICO is where you want to go to get your credit reports. Corey, I want you to chime in on this and fill in any blanks that I missed there. Go right ahead.
Well, I agree with you on with the 3 avenues that you take to get the credit report, to get a glance at the credit report. Now, one of the other ways that I attack it, long before I even order the credit reports, what I do, because some people addresses are so screwed up within the credit bureau system, I always at least do 3 chains of address. I fill out 3 chains of address forms with the United States Postal Service. I literally do that.
Right.
Right? Because that's a public record, and believe it or not, Lexisnexis picks those up as well as the credit bureaus. That's because I want everything to line up.
Right.
And once I have that in place, I might wait a couple of weeks, and I might make an inquiry just for the simple fact if a person hasn't used their credit in a while, or if they have, if a collection agency has made even a soft pull, at that point, I will actually call the credit bureaus and order my reports over the phone because I want the physical report to come from them.
Right.
That's one of the things I do in addition to the ways that you talked about doing it.
Right.
And that's also to make sure that my address is circulating correctly with the credit bureaus, as well as, Lexisnexis and the ID analytics, and some of the other ones are different.
I can totally concur, and not to cut you off, and I don't want you to lose your train of thought, but for those of you that don't know, the reason why it's critical to have your address lined up is because your accounts on your credit report are intimately tied to the address. And what Corey is suggesting is when you change your address up front in the beginning, it makes life a whole lot easier when you start challenging things off of your credit report. So I like that. I like that a lot. That's good. Go ahead.
And one of the other things that I also do, a lot of people are not aware of Experian has the National Fraud Database, which doesn't mean that it's fraud, but there's a database called the National Fraud Database. And you got to get control of that database in terms of any of your information that might be listed in that database. And it might be something that's small. It might have nothing to do with you. You can move into a new apartment. That could be your new address. You could get a new cell phone number. But that number could have been attached to somebody before you that may have filed an identity theft, or it might have been some default with Capital One, or a bounce check, or anything that they might have deemed fraudulent. Those addresses or telephone numbers or names, your name might be attached to somebody else's name. Those are in the National Fraud Database, and that could come back to give you problems as well. So you want to get a hold of that, and that's another conversation, but that's something else that I attack in the beginning, even before I get to the process of cleaning my credit.
So let's just kind of touch on that real briefly. So I've got it actually pulled up on the screen right now so the viewers can see this. And so I've got the National Fraud Database, and you're right. It's owned and operated through Experian. And so, Corey, would you suggest that they simply call up, or would they mail a request to get a copy of their report from the National Fraud Database?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you can see it, because a lot of people that I have spoken with, they for whatever reason, they didn't have the contact information, but you could do it. The best way of doing it is doing the certified request, to get the information that's listed in their National Fraud Database that's pertaining to your report. And what I've been doing, Dante, I've actually been trying to create a step-by-step way of doing it, because it can be quite difficult, because you might even call them up and they tell you that you can't have access to it, but that's not true.
Right.
You can.
Can you freeze your national fraud database like you can put a freeze on, say, for example, SageStream? Okay, got it.
Nah, because some of the information is is like, I don't know if you paid attention, if you've gotten your Lexisnexis, the Kieran report that I talked about. You noticing, right? You ever notice in the report how it has, man, it could have you attached to a girl that you dated in high school.
Right.
Like,
yeah, it's pretty extensive.
Yeah, so those things, like with the National Fraud Database, they are indirectly connected to you, but it's still like, I don't know the phrase, like public domain information or whatever, but there's still a way to attack that, and I've been trying to put together information to extend to people. It's just a process, you know. I think I spoke to you about creating the whole site where people could come to this site and get all of those reports.
Right.
Retail equation. So.
Yeah, and in fact, we're going to talk about that. So for those of you that are listening, stay through to the very, very end, because we got some goodies here that we want to go ahead and share with you as well. So the gist of what we've gone so far is, even before we send anything to the credit agencies as far as trying to fix something, there's some preparatory things that you have to do before you do that. And so and what Corey was talking about is make sure you get a handle on the National Fraud Database. Now, Corey, what's the main advantage? If you could say it in 2 sentences or 3 sentences, what's the main advantage of getting a hold and controlling National Fraud Database? And who would want to have this information?
Who would want to have? You mean in terms
right,
of if you want to have it? The banks?
Well, the banks. Oh, right. So the banks would want to know. Right.
Yeah, you got to think about this. Sometimes when you apply for credit, or they make you jump through these hoops and say, well, we need to send a copy of your driver's license and social. Even when you have a clean person, or they might say, well, we pulled this information from public records and things. Like, a lot of times those things can be triggered from what's in their National Fraud Database report.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with, you know, what you've done. It's just something that they created to, you know, I always talk about credit is for poor people, because the whole objective is to enslave people by way of numbers.
That's right. Yeah.
Credit is numbers.
Right.
And you know, you got very smart people that create algorithms and create these lexicons of databases that basically can watch people and predict behavior and all of that. So
sure.
You know,
Okay, so let's talk about now. Okay, so we talked about the things that we need to do prior to doing anything, and that is you know, we want to make sure that our addresses are all uniform, and if possible, have fresh addresses, is what Corey was suggesting, and I like that too. And it's funny, we here in the office.
Curtis, I mean, Dante.
Yeah.
One other thing, not to cut you off. One of the other things I have done sometimes is if I have a really good friend that has maybe a small credit card, I'll actually get them to add whoever I'm using to their card as an authorized user, as well as change their billing address of their card to the address that I plan on, you know.
Nice.
So that's another way of the credit bureaus picking up that address, in addition to correcting, you know, doing the mail forwarding with the United States Postal Service. Yeah,
that's a good point. And along those lines there, when you do change your address, and Corey brings up a good point, and that's a very, very sophisticated way. And let me say this, and the reason why Corey is pointing that out, and that's a really good point. When it comes to the consumers, the credit agencies does not believe the consumer. They don't even want to hear from us as consumers, let alone believe what we say. The credit agencies are always going to take the creditor's word, the bank's word, or a third-party word over the consumer's word. So what Corey is saying is this, okay? when you become an authorized user, in other words, as you're piggybacking on somebody else's, say for example, credit account, and it gets updated, you can use that address, and it makes things easier to get updated. And I'll give you an example. Many people try to update their address information, and they get nowhere. And the reason is because they haven't contacted the creditors, they haven't contacted a third independent party as far as the credit agency is concerned. Once the credit agencies believes from somebody else other than a consumer, that's when they'll make the change. And that's a pretty smart move. I like that part.
That's because people have to remember, you are not the customer. You're the product. The consumers are the product. The customers are the banks, the creditors, the whoever.
Right.
So they're not. That's why you don't get anywhere, because you're the product.
Right. Exactly. Right. Almost an inconvenience nuisance, really. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch gears now, and we're going to talk about how to remove pesky inquiries. And I'm going to share with you guys how we do it, and then Corey's probably going to have a different twist, and we're going to learn from him how he does it. All right. So when it comes to inquiries, one of the first things that we like to do is we like to go ahead and go to this site called SageStream. And what we do is we put a freeze on the client's SageStream account, or we have the client do it. SageStream is associated with a company called ID Analytics. Now, as a consumer, you're not going to be able to contact ID Analytics. They're not going to give you any sort of communications. They'll just refer you to SageStream. So that's the first thing that we do. Now, the second thing that we do is we send a demand letter, and in that demand letter, I'm going to pull up a sample here. We're talking about in the demand letter, we utilize Section 604 of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And I'm going to go ahead and pull that up right now. And as I'm pulling that up, Corey, go ahead and jump in and walk through how you would get rid of an inquiry yourself here. And then I'll finish up after you go ahead and do that.
I actually do it.
Yeah.
When you say we just alike, I actually use the same method that you use, but one of the other methods that I use, I'll also attack the individual company that has placed the inquiry on my report, and I'll use a real strong notarized affidavit letter and send that to the creditor,
right,
requesting that the inquiry be removed, as well as, you know, placing a phone call to them as well.
Right.
I don't too much deal with the you know, the credit bureaus. First off, if I do, I'm not gonna lie. Like, okay, if I have no credit, if the individual has no credit,
right,
with the inquiry in question, I don't know anything about it, so I still might get them to go, you know, go file some type of report. Like, they have no knowledge of it, you know.
Right, right.
Those are two of the ways that I do it.
Yeah, what we do is it's interesting that you say that, and we've had a lot of successes. I would say we send our first letters actually go to the credit agencies, and we get about an 80% success rate. It's not 100%, not 90%, but about 80%. And I'm showing a sample letter of how we do. And by the way, each letter that we do, that we prepare, is always different. Okay, no two letters are alike.
Right,
because
yeah,
right.
They got to be, yeah.
Yeah, because
right.
We found that if they see that there's a mimic or a copying, they'll basically send you a letter back saying that you know, we're not going to do anything.
Frivolous. Yeah.
It's frivolous, exactly. So you don't want to get caught up to that trap here. But here's what we do: we essentially demand. We're not requesting. We actually demand, and this is why we call these demand letters. We demand that the credit agencies provide us three things in our demand letters. Number one, permissible purpose from the creditor. Number two, written authorization. And number three, proof that I even initiated an inquiry. Those three things. And Section 604 says that the credit agencies, if they're going to do a reasonable investigation under 611, it talks about reasonable investigation, but Section 604 gives us the three things, the three pillars that we have to have. And again, permissible purpose, proof that I initiated the inquiry, and written authorization. So what we do, we come at it like this, all right? We don't ask the credit agencies to verify and investigate nothing. We say we see it. Now we want you to provide us the three things that 604 says you got to have if you're going to keep this on my credit report. And that's how. So now it becomes very, very. It's a great inconvenience for the credit agencies to generate, to contact the creditor to get a copy of the permissible purpose, you know. And as far as proof that I initiated an inquiry, hey, as far as I'm concerned, if Corey has my information, who's to say that Corey is not applying online for a credit card? All right, they don't know. They don't know. So now, there's a gentleman by the name of Justin Baxter, and I don't know, Corey, if you know this guy. He's an attorney out of Oregon. The company's called Baxter.
I've heard of him.
Yeah. He this is how he wins major lawsuits, and just about all of his lawsuits are kept quiet. Okay, the credit agencies don't want the public to know how many times they've been sued, and we're talking in many cases hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, because of the same stuff. And so what we do, what's a little bit different from Corey, is we'll use the first round to send to the credit agencies. We'll say to the credit agencies, provide us those three things. All right. If for whatever reason that doesn't work, then we turn our attention to the creditor and say, now you provide us these three things: permissible purpose, proof that I initiated the inquiry, my written authorization. And in most cases these days, most inquiries are done online. Okay,
Right.
And so it stops them dead in their tracks. They can't deliver it, and then now they got to get rid of it. Right.
Right.
Okay.
And
Go ahead, Corey.
now that's one of the other things that I do, and I'll do it with accounts. I'll do it with whatever, and that's
Right.
That's
Right.
use an attorney and just go in on them, like cut through the chase.
Yeah.
I'm a suit.
Right.
You know, it won't go anywhere because they'll give in, and it's free.
Right.
Believe it or not, it's free. So
Right. So let's talk about that. So we're going to talk about collections charge. See, we treat collections, charge-offs, late student loans, pretty much lump it into all one category. And so one of the first things that we do for removing charge-offs, collections, and things like that, we have two categories of how we treat them. So anything that's, for example, less than $1,000, we'll use a technique called a restrictive endorsement agreement. Restrictive endorsement agreement. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually switch screens here. And as I do, and I apologize, the screen is going to go blank here, but I'm going to actually show you guys what a restrictive endorsement agreement is, because a lot of you guys don't know. And this is a very, very powerful technique that we use. I would say we get a 95% success rate. 95%. And this is for things under $1,000. So if it's a collections or a charge-offs, and we'll typically see this in medical bills or utilities or something else that's Mickey Mouse. So here's the way it works. We have the client contact the creditor or the collections company, and we say, hey, look, I see this thing on my credit report. I'd like to get rid of it today. I don't have a lot of money. I see that $1,000 is owed. How about we do this? How about I just send you guys $200 and we'll just $200 and we'll just call it even. And they may say yes, they may say no. They may say, you know what, you owe us $1,000. We won't take 200, but we'll take 300 or 400 or 5. Doesn't matter what it is. Say fine. Where do I send the payment? Oh no, Dante. We'll take it by credit card. Nope, I'm not going to do that. Well, you can send it to us by Western Union. No, I'm not going to do that. Well, Dante, you can go ahead and send it to us by ACH. No, I'm not going to do that. As a matter of fact, you're not going to send them any type of payment unless it's a personal check. And on the back of that check, you're going to write something like this. By negotiating this check, and I apologize, my spell check there is There we go. By negotiating this check, the creditor, and whatever the creditor's name is or the collection company is, herein agrees that this payment represents paid in full, paid as agreed, and further agrees to remove this account and whatever the account is from my credit report. Okay, you write that on the back of your check, all right, in the signature space there, and as you can see, it's just a real simple thing, but it's mutually it's called the Restrictive Endorsement Agreement. Okay, Restrictive Endorsement Agreement, and so we use this. So what happens is you basically you take this check, you send it to the party, whoever the party is. They get the check. Now, a lot of times, because it is a charge-off or it's a collections, they're not really expecting to get any sort of money at all. And when they get this check, it's like Christmas for them. They're going to cash that check. As long as I've been with the company, there's only happened a few times where it didn't happen, and they took the accounting and routing number and converted it to an ACH. We then notify the bank immediately that that ACH was not authorized. The bank returns the money, okay, and then we send a check again with another letter saying, you do this again, this is a federal offense, we will go ahead and prosecute. They go ahead and cash the check, and then we get it off. But this is a very, very powerful technique, and this is, again, for people that if you got a little bit of money for items that are $1,000 or less. And I'm going to talk about it in a little bit for things that are, say, for example, if you had a repossession, maybe it's a $40,000 that you owe. But Corey, jump into here. Have you ever used this technique before, a restrictive endorsement agreement?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but I've used it, and I kind of use it in a different way. Like you probably heard of, sometimes I'll use it, but it'll be under, like, attached to, like, an affidavit of denial. And basically, it's the same, you know, it's basically like I'm not even saying the debt is mine. I'm not saying it's not mine.
Right.
But if we go through, you know, kind of like the same steps, you'll agree to delete basically from the credit report.
Right.
And
right.
So sometimes, and I have two ways of doing it, because I think I put a copy of the simple way in the book. The first way, which basically just not even agreeing to pay anything, but just basically demanding that they take it off. And, you know, I also showed what I get back in return sometimes is that affidavit of destroyed instrument that some of the collection agencies use, and basically they're using a notary to basically have whoever swear to that you owe the debt, and that doesn't hold up.
Right.
You know,
right.
when you take them to court, it don't hold up.
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah.
Because it's baseless. That's why it doesn't hold up. And and so if you guys want to really kind of fine tune and master that technique, get the book How to Outsmart the Credit Bureaus, because he talks about that, and he actually has a sample affidavit.
Conspiracy of Credit. That's the one that I talk about it in. I tell a whole story on it.
Right. Conspiracy of Credit. And I apologize because they're both really, really great books there. But yeah, it's in the Conspiracy of Credit. Now, for those of you that don't know what an affidavit is, let me just kind of go back to the basics, because, you know, sometimes I know me and Corey will talk shop, or he and Curtis or whatsoever, and so it becomes, all right, what's an affidavit? An affidavit is nothing nothing more than a document that's a statement of facts. A statement of facts, and so basically what you're saying is, for example, fact 1, my name is, for example, Corey P. Smith. Fact 2, I live somewhere in Tennessee, and so on. And so what you're doing is you're stating the facts, and then what Corey is suggesting in this particular technique, as far as removing a collections or a charge off, is send an affidavit to that particular creditor or charge-off company or collections company, and you know, and say, hey, you know, and what I do, and we do the same thing as well. If you look at the account numbers these days on many things, such as your credit report, your full account number is never on the credit report. It's redacted. And so, to be quite frank, you don't really know 100% sure that that's actually your account. You don't know. And so you can honestly say, hey, look, I'm not familiar with this. And you would be saying an accurate statement. You're not familiar with it. You're not familiar with this account. Therefore, da-da-da-da-da. Am I right, Corey? Right.
Yeah, and one thing that people have to understand with an affidavit, basically, you like a notary is an officer of the state.
Right.
That's who you're swearing in front of. So that holds up in court. The other thing, anytime that you submit an affidavit, it has to be answered, especially when it's dealing with credit, banking, or anything. They have to answer this affidavit, and if they're smart, they will, for the simple fact you're building a paper trail for later on.
Right. Right. That's exactly right. And so I've got up on the screen just a sample. Now, again, Corey's got it in his book, but here's a sample as well. And they're really easy to create. And, you know, they're all over the internet. So don't labor over it, but use that technique. Use the restrictive endorsement technique, and also use the affidavit. And so you got two powerful ways to get rid of charge-offs, collections. Same thing with student loans. Now, I'm going to talk about student loans here for just a second here, and Corey, you tell me if you have a different technique. And here's what I found out about student loans, and I didn't know this before, but all student loans are actually insured, every single one of them, not some of them, not a few of them, and because the banks actually know that the vast majority of people will actually default on student loans, and they're insured. And so what happens is if you get either a forbearance letter or a deferment letter, the credit agencies are actually not even supposed to start to report on that particular student loan. And so one of the things that we do is we have the client get either a forbearance letter or a deferment letter, and then we attach that to a demand letter and then get it off that way. So, Corey, speak to us a little bit about student loans, and have you dealt a lot with them yourself?
Man, I've dealt with them a lot, and I put a copy of that in the book of what I use on myself. I strictly go at them with the affidavits, requesting that it be removed, because one thing that people don't know, you just touched on one thing. Student loans are insured. They're also investments. They're bundled up and sold like an investment to investors. So you're right. You're definitely right about that. But I always use affidavits.
Got it.
I contact the credit bureaus, and I ask them, because if you really get into the Fair Credit Reporting Act, I mean, it's just so congested that a lot of people don't understand what that 100% accuracy means. That means that you have to produce, whether, I don't care what anybody tells you, when you send that affidavit in and you handwrite certain parts of it and you're requesting that they show you proof that you have agreed to this student loan, which is still like a debt, it's a credit card or like any other account.
Right.
They have to provide that. Now, it may take you 6 months to get it off, but if you stay persistent, they always take it off. I have not had one situation where they have not taken it off.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And it was something that initially I just tried.
Right.
I just tried it, and you know,
well,
probably after the.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think Corey, and for us, because so many clients come to us and they're in a hurry, just like you said earlier. They're in a hurry. So if we tell them 6 months, there's just no way. You know, they even though rightfully so it should take, But fortunately for us, we've found a way to kind of speed up that time frame, because we actually found a statute that says, and it's a federal statute that says that as soon as that insurance policy kicks in, or as soon as that it's been sold, just like you said, bundled up as a securities, okay, just like what they did with the mortgages and stuff like that, it actually turned out that that was illegal. So what happened was, there are a lot of class action lawsuits going on because subprime loans were getting bundled up and things of this nature, and a lot of people, we helped a lot of people get mortgages, those mortgages off of the credit report because of that. It's the exact same thing. And so we noticed that it takes us generally about 3 weeks, the way that we approach it and so forth, because what we're doing is we're providing the credit agencies with the actual statute that says that, because this is such, and we have it documented that we either got the forbearance letter, that it's been sold, or we've got the deferment letter. So one of those three things, and we document that, and that's how we get it off. Now, the other thing, and I want to kind of cover this a little bit, when you know how the inner workings of what happens with the credit agencies, you got a kind of a head start, and why we say about 3 weeks to get rid of a student loan. So I'll touch on this real briefly, and as I do that, I'm going to switch my screens over. But when you contact the credit agencies, you're going to do so in one of four ways. You're going to do it either by telephone, you're going to do it by fax, you're going to do it by letter, or you're going to do it by online. And I think Corey would agree with me that what you want to do is you want to do it everything by certified mail as much as possible. Corey, would you agree with that? Certified mail as much as possible?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Always.
Got it. Now, what happens is, I'm going to kind of walk you guys through it, and Corey may even know a little bit more, but here's what I know and understand to be true. When you send something to the credit agencies, all three of them, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, they literally have a machine that literally opens the envelope, removes the contents of the envelope, scans the letter, and will essentially summarize what you're saying and scan it and upload it into a system called e-Oscar, which stands for Online Solutions for Complete and Accurate Reporting. Now, I'm not going to get too technical about it, but I'm going to tell you what it is in just a nutshell, because it's nothing more than a glorified intra-email system. That's what it is. It's essentially an email system that the credit agencies use to communicate to creditors and third parties. So here's what happens. You send something to the credit agencies by letter. It gets opened up. It gets scanned. When it gets scanned, it takes part of what you're saying, and they've got multiple choice, there are about a couple dozen of them, multiple choice scenarios that's going down, such as, for example, Dante Reeves that says that this is not his account. And then it takes that and puts it into a 2 to 3 digit coded system. It gets routed to a processor. Now, get this, folks, get this. The dispute processors are often located not even in the United States. For example, if it's TransUnion, that processor is located in India. If it's Equifax, that processor is located in the Philippines. Experian, because they're the largest of the two, they've got 2 process centers, one in Chile and the other in Jamaica. And these folks are not necessarily the brightest, most motivated, and as a matter of fact, on top of that, they have a quota. When we found out how many disputes that they have to process during their shift, we have calculated that they have 18 to 90 seconds to handle a dispute. 18 to 90 seconds to handle a dispute. Now, if you listen to this, you got to be asking yourself, what on earth can they possibly be doing in 18 to 90 seconds to verify? You know, nothing. So what they're doing is, what we found out is that they are shooting an email, most likely to a third party. And I'm going to talk about public records here in just a second. As a matter of fact, let me just kind of, this will kind of tie into that. Let's just use a public record. Let's say you've got a bankruptcy that you want to get removed. You send a letter, it gets scanned, and now it gets routed to the dispute processor that's overseas. That dispute processor's got up to 90 seconds, whether or not he's going to delete it or just hit the button verified, hit the button delete. So here's what happens, and I'll use this as a, and then Corey, I'll let you jump in here in a second here, okay? If it's a public record, chances are that dispute processor is going to send an email over to, a signal over to Lexisnexis. Now, this is critical. This is really, really critical, and I want you guys to pay attention to this, because if you have a public record, the very first thing that I ever want you to do, and you're going to want to do a couple things before you send a demand letter over to the credit agencies, and I'll show you guys how to do this here. My screen is blank right now, but I'm going to bring it up here, and I'll let you see this here in just a second here. Lexisnexis opt-out. Okay, there it is. All right, and I'm going to show you this on the screen here. If you want to get rid of a public record, you want to get rid of anything, you got to understand what's going on behind the scenes in the credit agencies and why they're so secretive. Okay, because Section 611 says that they've got to do a thorough investigation. Section 609 talks about the things that we as consumers are entitled to know about, such as we're entitled to know the person who the credit agencies contacted. The credit agencies really don't want you to know what I'm about to share with you. And we actually know that there are attorneys charging $5,000, $7,000 what I'm about to share with you guys now. And this is what you do before you send anything to the credit agencies to get rid of a public record. So let's just walk through the steps real quick. The first thing that you do is you get a copy of the credit report. The second thing that you want to do is you want to go to this site here, Lexisnexis Information Suppression Request. Well, all I did was I simply Googled it, and this is it right here. That's it right there. Okay, and what you're going to do now is you're going to simply go to this site and you're going to fill out this simple form. It's free. Doesn't cost you anything, and what you do is you simply fill out your name, address, and on the very bottom where it says reason, you're simply going to click I do not want my information publicly available via LexisNexis products. What that does, ladies and gentlemen, as soon as you do that, and I would wait several days, and Corey's going to talk to you guys more about this, but I will wait several days before I go on to the next step, and that next step is to send an affidavit to the courthouse. And then that affidavit asks the clerk, do they directly furnish third parties information or the credit agency's information? And the answer is always going to be no. So now here's what I've done. I've effectively blinded the credit agency. Now they can't see it through LexisNexis. I have a letter in my hand with the court's letterhead saying that they did not release any information. So even if they went to a site such as pacer.gov, which stands for Public Access to Courts and Electronic Records, my letter from the court is going to trump anything else that the credit agencies come up with. The only way that the credit agencies now can keep a public record on my credit report is if they went down themselves and examined documents. They're not about to do that. It's not cost effective for them to do that. Okay, Corey, I'm going to let you go ahead and jump in. Sorry about that. Go ahead and jump in there. So we were talking about public records and also how the internal workings of how the credit agencies really work, with e-Oscar and so forth. So go ahead, Corey.
Right. One of the things that I do more than anything, I always do this, even if I suppress the LexisNexis report. I always, if it's a bankruptcy, if it's a tax lien, and this is, I talk about this in the book, and I think I show an example of this in the book as well. I always individually send affidavits to, whether it's like the bankruptcy court. I let them know, hey, I received correspondence from Equifax, TransUnion, or Experian stating that they verified this bankruptcy or this tax lien or this judgment. They verified this via phone, email, or fax by someone in your office. And because we know that public records, whether they tax liens, bankruptcies, public records, like, they don't report to the credit bureau. So, and if I have to write them 2 or 3 times before they respond to me, I write them. And eventually they respond, and their response is always, no, we do not. Like, let's say the tax lien, when I remove the tax lien, the letter I got back from them, they'll state, the only way that a tax lien can be verified is through a title search. So we know the credit bureaus are not doing title searches, and they also state that we didn't verify via phone, email, or fax to Equifax, TransUnion, or any third party.
Right.
So you have that as a weapon to use, in addition to the tactics and the methods that you just spoke about in terms of suppressing your public record information. And if you're unsuccessful, which I doubt very seriously that you will be, the step that I always talk about is sue them. You got all the paperwork in hand.
Right.
You got what you need
Absolutely.
to win. So,
right. What we do.
Afraid.
Yeah, exactly. What we do, Corey, and it's a little bit different, and we use the court system as a very, 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 very last result. And there's one more thing that we try before we get to that point. So first thing that we do is we use the credit agencies. We go after the credit agencies first. If that's not successful, then we'll turn our attention to the creditors. If that's not successful, then we go to our third thing, and we call that the 605B nuclear bomb. Okay.
Right, I'm familiar with the 605. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that 605B, that is that. In other words, the court thing. Yeah, we have that in our arsenal. But I would say out of the thousands that we've done, there's only been maybe 3 or 4 times that we even have to go that route. And of those 3 or 4 times, in fact, there was 4 times we won 3. The fourth guy, the guy kind of flaked out. He had some sort of he had some personal issues with the legal system, and he was afraid to step foot inside of a courthouse, and that's why he didn't go. That's so. But the 605B, for those of you that guys don't know, we use that as it's you. Corey, I'll let you talk about 605B because we use it quite extensively, but fortunately we don't have to use it a lot. But it's just one of those things.
I have gotten to a point where I don't even have to use the 605B letter, and believe it or not, like, so many people have tried to use it. And using it in the wrong way, that it's like the credit bureaus, sometimes they look at them and they spit out the old frivolous, letter, or they don't respect it. Now, as far as me, you're right, the court is the last resort, and usually it does not get to that. But it's very effective when I present the letter from the source, whether it's the bankruptcy courts, whether it's the Register of Deeds, stating that, hey, we do not verify information, or we do not report information to the credit bureau.
Right.
So that is so powerful for me when I'm helping people, because, hey, the credit bureau is here. You're saying that you verified this information with this agency, or this, this entity, this part of the government or court,
right.
And I have a letter from them, and I send them copies of everything, the letter, the envelope, everything that came in, and they're stating that they don't report. So how is this accurate? But when I use that, it always works for me.
Yeah,
I cannot think of one time that it has not worked for me.
Same here.
And it's simply me, like as far as, like, I don't even have to throw the the 605B in there, or use any other statute, because, hey, it's just a simple affidavit that I create on my own, go and get it notarized. It's just stating the fact, and they comply, like 99, damn near 100% of the time.
Yeah,
they comply. And that's all people have to do. They just have to be patient and be consistent and persistent at the same time. That's the biggest problem.
That's the you hit the nail right on the head, Corey. That's the biggest. Our biggest challenge is not getting stuff off. Our biggest challenge is educating the client, and we tend to be really fast in what we do. And I'll give you an example here. I'm gonna switch screens here, and I'll show you a gentleman. I don't know if you know this guy. His name is Merrill Chandler. Do you know Merrill Chandler, Corey? Merrill Chandler?
Nah,
Okay, gotcha.
I don't know him.
Yeah. This guy is an attorney. He used to be an attorney out of Utah. That's probably why you don't know. But interesting. Back in 2000, I want to say 2011, 2012, and I got a picture of him right now on the screen, and he's on YouTube here. I think it was 2011, 2012. He contacted Curtis. He got Curtis's information somehow. And long story short, he had a partner. So it wasn't him, but he had a partner that had a bankruptcy, and Merrill couldn't get it off of his partner's credit report. So he asked Curtis if he wanted to get involved and help out, and Curtis, said, "Hey, look, be, happy to help," and so on, because he was referred to somebody else he knew. And I don't know the full story of how they actually met, but they got to talking, and so Curtis was curious and asked Merrill, "What kind of business are you guys going to be starting, by the way?" And he says, "Well, we're going to be starting a company called Credit Sense." And Curtis is like, "Oh, well, what's that all about?" Well, he says, we're gonna take people that's got good credit, and we're going to make it even better. We're going to get them into the 800 FICO scores. And he says, "Wow, that's pretty interesting. And what's your background? How did you get started in all this?" And he says, "Well, I just sold a company not too long ago." And Curtis says, "Yeah, what was the name of the company?" "Lexington Law." And Curtis is like, what he told me. Now, for those of you guys that don't know, Lexington Law is everywhere. Everywhere. They advertise everywhere. They're not the best as far as credit repair, but as far as marketing, they are the largest out there. But they also have what we call a high burn-through rate. And what I mean by burn-through rate is that they are literally burning through their clients. Whereas we're getting referrals after referrals after referrals without any advertising. They have to go out and market for new people because they're not getting the referrals. And here's what Merrill told Curtis, and Curtis told me, that they only get a 40% success rate. 40% success rate, and that's if you're with them for 6 to 12 months or more. 40%. And we just think that's just dismal. That's just dismal. That's just really bad there.
Just because they only dispute. They only dispute.
Yeah, right. And what they're doing is they're using software to send out dispute letters. All of our letters are handcrafted. We don't utilize software. Corey, do you? I don't even think you utilize software, do you?
And I don't deal with it. No.
Yeah, exactly. Right, and so what they do is they string their clients along for months on end, collecting monthly fees. I'd much rather, they say, "Hey, look, let me show you." So one of the first things that we do, Corey, is that we will take on a client. We don't take an upfront fee, but what we do is we take their personal information, just like you said before, get it all lined up. Guess what happens when that happens first? Their credit scores actually go up about 20, 25 points. And what we found in our research was that, everybody's told the 5 categories under which your credit is determined. Everybody has heard that 35% of your score is made up of payment history, 30% of your score is made up of balances or utilization, 15% is made up of how long you had a trade line, and then 10% is mixed use, and the other final 10% is new credit. That's the 5 things that people are taught. But in reality, FICO has the people that actually make the algorithms, they have 47 points, not 5 points, 47 points. So the reason why I bring that up is because if you turn around and get your personal information, because everybody that takes a look at their personal information, I would say in our based on our research and our history and looking and so forth, 98% of the people, the public, has something wrong with their personal information. And let me give you an example. Let's say, for example, Corey P. Smith, who's on the line with us, that's his name. But let's just say on his Experian, it says just simply Corey Smith. And then let's say then Equifax has it as Corey Paul Smith. Now, I don't know if that's his middle name or not, but then, so you see what I'm saying? All three are him. So you got Corey Smith, Corey P. Smith, Corey Paul Smith. All three are him. But guess what? The algorithm views you as an ambiguity, they're not sure who to really believe. And as such, you're going to lose points, okay, because they're communicating. A lot of people don't know that the credit agencies communicate with one another. They do that all the time. But you can literally, so what we do is we tell the client, okay, we got your scores up 20, 25 points, and sometimes it's a little bit lower than that. Sometimes it's only 15. And we tell them, look, now that we've demonstrated, we're going to go ahead and we need to collect the $1,000 from you to go further, okay? And if they don't have the money, we actually show them resources or where to borrow that money. And then ultimately, they're in a position now to pay that back off, and we'll get that off the credit report, and it makes them happy. But Corey, go ahead and jump in there. I didn't mean to talk that much there, but at least you know who. Go ahead.
Yeah. No. I had actually, I was actually just reading something that you had up on the screen. I was reading this just 3 simple steps to turn 1% into
right, into 2%. Right, exactly.
Right. I don't like I don't use a lot of the software like you said, and
right.
My main thing is just to educate people from the standpoint of using the information that I make available, and as I said, being persistent with it and being patient and not being lazy. The reason why I don't get into credit repair, and I found out early on, one,
right,
when people give you their money,
right,
they want you to do something in a week.
Oh, yes,
or
yes.
a month. That
right.
It took them 7 years to mess up, and they want you to clean it up in 7 days.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah. Oh, yeah.
As my wife told me one time, they get mad at you because you're not moving fast enough to do something that they were too lazy to do themselves.
Right, right. That's exactly you know what, Corey? Oh my God, you hit the nail right on the head. And that's why the way we do it, we really, the only thing that we're doing is just type it. That's the only thing that we're doing. They're going down to the post office, they're interacting directly with the credit agencies or with the creditor. We tell them what to do, but they're doing it, okay? And so that's why we like that, because you bring up a really good point, because as soon as they take your money, they think that they own you. They think that all they got to do is just sit back, and if things ain't done in 7 days, they want to complain and give you a bad name and everything else.
Exactly. And I'll say this real fast, like, this is one of the things that the reason why I know so much about credit, because I connected, I do a lot of research. Like, even I take something as simple as, people don't, would you ever sit back and think, why does Goldman Sachs owns the stake that it owns in TransUnion? There's a reason for that.
Oh yeah.
And if you dig deep enough, you'll discover things, and it'll teach you how to combat things when it comes to cleaning up your credit, number one. Number two, something as simple as why when Trump got into office, his people were trying so hard to remove the head of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
Right.
All these things, the reason why when I talk about the credit bureaus, you're the product, you're not the customer.
Right.
Because they have very powerful lobbyists. They put a lot of money into politics because they're trying to control a lot of things. Like, hey, the whole industry of poverty and poor people, it's an industry. Look it up. It's called the poverty industry. It has a Wikipedia page.
Right.
And credit is a big part of that. So, and I'll say this to people, when you're trying to clean your credit up and you have to do certain things, I'm not saying break the law, but it's easy for people to have integrity. It would be easy for anybody
Right.
to have integrity when they're sitting on millions of dollars.
When things are going well, things are going right.
When things are going right, when things are going well, but when you're looking at credit, because that's your savings account.
Right.
That's how you're going to really get to the dollars that you need to enhance your life financially. It's a life and death situation, and you have to decide, like, you know, what are you going to do? Are you going to be patient enough to see it through and gain information in the process, or are you going to be a crash dummy?
Right, exactly. All right, now, Corey, we're almost reached our time here, so what I want to do is I want to talk about some of the things that you're involved in, and I want you to, and I could pull something up if you want to have me direct some projects that you're working on, and what advice would you have for people? Now, once they got their credit clean, how can they capitalize on that? How can they make money? And what's your take on that? And share with us some of the things that you're going to be getting into and what we can look out for and how we can follow you.
One of the biggest, like, this is another thing that I stress to people. During the process that you're cleaning up your credit, I attack the credit unions first. And what I mean by that, even before, if I have somebody that I'm working with, when they're in the 500 credit scores, I'm already putting them in the credit unions, whether it be Navy, Andrews, NASA, United Nations, Tinker Federal Credit Union. I'm all USAA. I'm getting them in the credit bureaus because I'm preparing them. So once their scores are up, those are going to be some of the first inquiries. And the credit unions are a lot easier than the banks because you don't even have to walk into the credit unions. It's still stated. They don't require a whole lot if your credit scores are where they need to be and if all your information lines up. Once you're able to obtain the money from them, I stress the biggest thing and the one thing that I'm involved in even more than credit is real estate investing. And I learned that when I took a dive the first time, that if I would have taken the real estate that I had and did the right thing with it, it would have gave me a lot more financial longevity than what I had. So some of the properties, you just got to be smart about what you retain and what you sell, because it's like people be thinking, man, if I had $500,000, I could stop working. Well, I'm in my early 40s.
Right.
If I got $500,000 right now and that was it, it wouldn't last me for the rest of my life.
Right.
And a lot of people don't realize. So you have to take their money and invest it, and it's one real estate deal at a time. It's small real estate deals, and you have to work your way up to some of the bigger commercial deals.
Right.
And that's a practice of mine, and I mean, and I practice what I preach. And then as far as having the smaller, low overhead income streams, like I have the private car rental business that I put into place 5 years ago.
Right.
And I do nothing, like it's word of mouth and it's stable people, and you know, that's my deal, but it brings me over 10, 15 grand a month.
There you
go. I got into the whole Airbnb thing. Not only did I bought stock in Airbnb and it's growing. I picked up like rental, like whether apartments down in Orlando.
Right.
Got a couple in Phoenix. I got some right there at 1010 Wilshire, in LA.
Oh, you
and these.
Right.
Yeah, they do good.
Right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So all of those, multiple revenue streams.
Right.
Multiple revenue streams.
I can't stress that enough. You are so. Go ahead.
Yeah, but what that does is this: once you have multiple revenue streams and you start building your money up, you're also building positive momentum within your life. And once you got that momentum, it gives you power. Like somebody asked me the question, like, man, Corey, if you had the choice to get $5 million at one time or if they said we'll give you $5 million over the course of 10, 15 years, what would you do? Give me the $5 million up front. They was like, why? You might run, nah, because I have more power.
Yeah,
I have a lot more
right.
power than you giving me $5 million at one time.
Right.
As opposed to it spreading out. But you know, that's what that would be my advice to people. But real estate is the key more than anything.
Yeah.
Like, I'm big with credit, but if you really could take a look inside of my life, if I really open it up,
right,
you'll see that, like, right now, me and my wife, we hitting at 50 just single family homes as rental income. And,
you know what, you are so right, and I tell you know, I don't tell everybody this, but it's the exact same thing. You know, this credit stuff, the business funding, that's kind of like one of our businesses. We have other businesses now, and you're right, we invest in real estate as well. What we do, though, you know, I kind of, for us, the residential was pretty good, and that was real good constant butter, because what we were doing is basically flipping contracts. Okay, at first, when we first started doing it, we were, you know, actually fixing it up ourselves, and we realized, man, what we need to turn money faster, so we got really good at flipping and assigning contracts, and then we found out that you could do the same thing with commercial properties. So instead of making, you know, 5, 10, 15, 25,000, now it's more like 100,000, 250,000.
Yeah, big payday.
Exactly.
Big payday.
And so we have an exclusive class for members that join us that you know, we basically teach that. So, you know, Corey, man, this has been a really delight. I really appreciate the time.
I'm gonna drop one more jewel before we hang up when it comes, because I do have the new book, The Unbreakable Laws of Business Credit, that I wrote years ago, and I see my information in other places. But one of the things I gave this advice to a friend of mine the other day: when they're building these companies, you're building your business credit out. One of the things that you want to start doing with your company, you want to start registering your company with the work number. And Equifax owns the work number. And the reason why I say that is because anytime, it's better to not have to sign a 4506T when you may be trying to get funding through your own company, as opposed to, hey, I'm an employee of this company, and if you need to verify my employment, it can simply be done through the work number. All it needs is the code, log in, damn, this person works. And then that's something that I want to, you know, that's one of the things that I'm doing with the, you know, giving a lot more information than what's been provided in the past with the business credit. But that's what I wanted to input before we hung up.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Now, is your book available in stores now? Because if so, I want to put it up on the screen so everybody can see the cover.
Now, we're trying to have it. I thought I sent you a copy of. I did send you a copy of the new cover. I thought of the Unbreakable Laws of Business Credit. I don't know if I could email it to you.
Yeah, you may have sent it to Curtis, and he didn't get it to me.
Yeah, I sent it to Curtis. Yeah, but that book, trying to have it, I had put it on hold because I was working on a publishing deal that fell due. But trying to have it everywhere within the next 3 weeks, trying to have that book, you'll be able to get it anywhere. There's a lot of great information.
Well, exactly. So as soon as we catch wind that it's available, let us know, and we'll help you spread the word. Now, one other thing also too, because Curtis is telling me that there's a website that you're working on. Is that up and running yet? As far as
nah, we actually about 30 days out, but on their website, people be able to go to that one website, and get the Lexisnexis report. They'll be able to do even what you talked about, to give them specific instructions on how to suppress the information. They'll give them information on the ID analytics report. Give them information on their retail equation report. Information on the national fraud data base. Anything that you could pop. Their MIB report for medical records. The choice report for insurance. Like it'll have everything in one location. Almost just a more advanced version of what they're doing now with like the credit check total.
Exactly, and nobody is doing that at this point, and nobody. You're the first one.
Right.
You're the first one.
Right.
All right, Corey. So we're about to time out here on this webinar, and so, but I wish I could talk to you forever, man. You have been something else. You are more than what Curtis has talked about, and I'm just glad to meet you. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this.
Oh man, likewise, my brother.
Okay,
Likewise.
everybody, have fun with this information. If you have to repeat and go over it, there's a lot of good information in this.